In the spring of 1902, a printing company in Brooklyn, New York had a problem. The company was Sackett-Wilhelm's Lithography. They printed fine multicolor magazines and catalogs, and the summer humidity in their plant was ruining their color registration. The ink was bleeding, the paper was warping, and the work was being destroyed. A 25-year-old engineer at the Buffalo Forge Company took on the problem. His name was Willis Carrier. On July 17, 1902, he signed the mechanical drawings for a system that would cool the air in the plant by passing it over chilled coils, removing moisture precisely and controlling both temperature and humidity for the first time in history. He had solved a printing problem. He had also invented air conditioning, and in doing so, though neither he nor anyone else understood it at the time, he had made possible the Sun Belt, the modern skyscraper, the semiconductor, the pharmaceutical factory, the summer blockbuster, and the livable Gulf City. He had changed where human beings could live, what they could build, and how they could work. Time magazine named him one of the 100 most influential people of the 20th century. He is the only HVAC engineer on the list. Willis Carrier was born on November 26, 1876, in Angola, New York, a small town just outside of Buffalo. He grew up on a dairy farm, the only child of older parents. His mother was a birthright Quaker. His father was a farmer. As a child, he had trouble with fractions. His mother taught him using apples cut into pieces, a patient, practical approach that stayed with him. He would spend his career solving abstract problems through concrete, physical experimentation. He struggled with the theory, but the thing itself he understood. He worked hard enough to earn a scholarship to Cornell University, where he studied mechanical engineering. He graduated in 1901. Between semesters, he had sold viewing cards door to door and tried with a partner to start a laundry business for Cornell students. He was not a passive person. He joined the Buffalo Forge Company as a research engineer. Within months of arriving, he worked out a series of tables for calculating heating surface areas that saved the company $40,000 and earned him the head of the department. He was 24 years old. The problem that came to him in 1902 was, on the surface, a narrow industrial one. Sackett-Wilhelms needed stable humidity in their plant. Engineers had managed to heat, cool, and humidify air in various ways before, but precise, controllable management of both temperature and humidity simultaneously, that was new. Carrier later described the moment the solution came to him. He was standing on a train platform in Pittsburgh watching fog roll in. He realized that he could dry air by passing it through water to create a specific kind of fog, and that by controlling this process, he could manufacture air with exactly the amount of moisture he chose. It was the insight that made everything else possible. He designed the system. It worked. The Sackett-Wilhelms plant ran cooler and drier. The printing improved. Word began to spread. In 1906, the patent was issued, number 808,897, for an apparatus for treating air. It was the world's first spray-type air conditioning equipment, capable of both washing and precisely humidifying or dehumidifying air. But the science was still incomplete. Engineers using Carrier's system could make it work, but they could not always predict precisely what it would do in a new building or a new climate. That changed in 1911. On December 3, 1911, Carrier presented a paper to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. He called it Rational Psychrometric Formulae. It tied together the concepts of relative humidity, absolute humidity, and dew point temperature into a single unified formula that allowed engineers to design air conditioning systems precisely for any space in any climate. It became known as the Magna Carta of psychrometrics, and it is the scientific foundation on which every air conditioning system built since has rested. When World War I broke out in 1914, Buffalo Forge decided to concentrate entirely on manufacturing and exit the engineering business. Carrier and 6 colleagues faced the loss of their work. They pooled their life savings, $32,600 in total, and on June 26, 1915, founded the Carrier Engineering Corporation in New York. It was a remarkable act of faith in a technology that had so far been almost entirely industrial, installed in print shops, textile mills, pharmaceutical plants, and ammunition factories. The general public had never experienced air conditioning. Most people had never heard of it. That began to change in the 1920s. In 1922, Carrier invented the centrifugal chiller, a device that made large-scale air conditioning dramatically more practical and affordable for spaces like theaters and department stores. In 1925, he installed an air conditioning system at the Rivoli Theater on Times Square in New York City. It was the first time most of its patrons had ever experienced mechanically cooled air. The effect was electric. Word spread immediately. People came to the movies not just for the film, but for the cool. Theater attendance soared in summer months, previously the slow season. The summer blockbuster was born. Within years, theaters across America were installing air conditioning as a competitive necessity. Then came department stores, then office buildings, then hospitals. In 1926, the first air-conditioned private home was built in Minneapolis. By the 1930s, air conditioning was beginning to move from luxury to expectation. In 1930, Carrier Engineering merged with two other companies to form the Carrier Corporation, with Willis Carrier as chairman of the board. The company weathered the Depression, continued innovating, and displayed Carrier's vision in an igloo-shaped pavilion at the 1939 New York World's Fair, offering visitors a glimpse of a fully air-conditioned future. What Carrier's invention ultimately did to America is almost impossible to fully calculate. Before air conditioning, the hot months of summer meant genuine suffering, lost productivity, and death. Cities kept daily counts of heat-related fatalities. Factory output dropped in summer, hospitals struggled, office workers sat in pools of sweat. The notion of building tall, sealed glass towers in a hot climate was simply impractical. After air conditioning, all of this changed. The Sun Belt, the band of states across the American South and Southwest that now contains more than half the United States population, would be largely uninhabitable at its current density without air conditioning. Phoenix, Arizona, has a population of over 1.5 million. Without mechanical cooling, it would be a small desert outpost. The same is true of Houston, of Miami, of Las Vegas, of virtually every major city in the American South. Skyscrapers became livable working environments. The sealed glass towers of the modern city depend entirely on mechanical climate control. Without it, a 40-story office building in July would be a death trap. Modern manufacturing, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, food processing, precision electronics, all require precisely controlled temperature and humidity. Every clean room in every chip factory in the world runs on the technology Carrier developed. And the impact was not limited to America. Singapore's founding Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, called air conditioning one of the greatest inventions of mankind, saying explicitly that Singapore's transformation from a colonial backwater into one of the world's most prosperous nations would have been impossible without it. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, the modern Gulf cities that have drawn millions of residents and billions of dollars in investment exist only because air conditioning makes them livable year-round. In 1930, Carrier helped establish Toyo Carrier in Japan and Samsung Applications in Korea. South Korea is now the world's largest producer of air conditioning equipment. Willis Carrier died on October 7, 1950, in New York City. He was 73 years old. He held 80 patents at the time of his death. The Carrier Corporation he had founded continued to grow, was acquired by United Technologies in 1980, and was spun off again as an independent public company in 2020, with sales of nearly $19 billion and 53,000 employees. What did Willis Carrier actually build? 4 things that endure. First, the Sun Belt and modern urban geography. Without air conditioning, Phoenix, Houston, Miami, and Las Vegas could not exist at their current scale. He rewrote the map of where Americans live and work. Second, modern manufacturing and medicine. Pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, food processing, precision electronics all require controlled temperature and humidity. Every modern factory and every hospital runs on what Carrier invented in Brooklyn in 1902. Third, the skyscraper as a livable space. The sealed glass towers of the modern skyline in every city on Earth depend on mechanical climate control. Without Carrier's invention, the modern city does not exist in its current form. Fourth, summer productivity. Before air conditioning, economic output fell sharply in summer months across America. Carrier's invention added billions of productive working hours to the American economy every year. The productivity dividend from comfortable working environments may be the largest and least discussed economic contribution of any single invention in American history. 3 lessons from Willis Carrier's life. First, solve one problem and you may enable 1,000 others. Carrier set out to fix humidity in a print shop. What he built also made possible the summer blockbuster, the Gulf City, the semiconductor factory, and the modern hospital. The greatest inventions often start as narrow, specific solutions to narrow, specific problems. The broadness of the impact is rarely visible at the start. Second, put the science behind the product. His 1911 psychrometric formulae turned air conditioning from an improvised engineering fix into a designed, predictable system that any engineer could build for any space. Codifying the science multiplied the invention 1,000-fold. A product that only its inventor can build is a product with limited reach. Third, the modest inventor can change more than the famous one. Carrier was not a celebrity, he was not wealthy, he was a methodical engineer who worked steadily and held 80 patents and kept improving on his original insight until the day he died. The people who quietly keep deepening a fundamental breakthrough often create more lasting change than those who chase fame and recognition. A dairy farm near Buffalo, a printing problem in Brooklyn, a foggy Pittsburgh train platform. The Sun Belt, the modern city, the summer blockbuster, modern medicine and manufacturing. One invention signed on July 17, 1902 by a 25-year-old engineer who was just trying to help a printing company with its humidity problem. Thank you for joining us for episode 40. Our next episode is Edwin Land, the college dropout who invented instant photography, built Polaroid, and became one of the most creative scientific minds in American history. Steve Jobs called him one of his greatest inspirations. Until then, stay curious.